Good afternoon. You're listening to the Mother's Justice Show on 11:50 a.m. KKNW. I'm your host, Reverend Walden. It's my joy to be on the air. Mr. Rye will be joining us in a few minutes. How you liking spring so far? It's kind of cold, isn't it? Oh, and they say it's going to get up to 70 this week. When I came here in 1975, it was cold up until the day after 4th of July. And so it's interesting when people might not believe global warming, but there's something happening in the world. And Seattle weather is sort of different than it was when I got here all those years ago. In fact, I wore a sweater sometime part of July. So it's going to be interesting to see as it warms up and people take out and go out and have a good time. Well, I didn't make it up to see the tulips, and I had hoped to get there, but I just did not go. But my friend Susan Freed, who is a photographer, she went, and she has lots of beautiful photos that I can use for my beauty break. Well, while I'm waiting on Mr. Rye, I might as well let you know that Mothers is having our community our monthly meeting Wednesday, 6 to 7:30, at the Liberty Bank apartment building, community room. Um, we hope to see you there. We're actually getting our engine started again. I mean, we've spent a lot of time down at the Community Police Commission, and it took so much bandwidth doing that. It was hard to keep up with all the other things we were doing. So anyway, I hope that you'll show up. Again, it's going to be this Wednesday night from 6 to 7:30 at the Liberty Bank apartment building in the community room. And you can call me if you need more information. My number is 206-380-1710. And so that's again, my number is 206-380-1710. And be sure to check out our podcast. You can go to 11:50 a.m. KKNW. You can listen there and subscribe to it. Tell your friends about it. And also, if you have somebody that you're interested in wanting to interview, I want you to just send me an email there. You can send me an email. You can send the information to Mother's website. We have a website. It's Mothers for Police Accountability.org. If you have somebody you want us to interview, talking about police justice and reform, and also how we can continue to improve in our community. So anyway, just waiting to see if Mr. Rye is here, and he should be coming on just in a few minutes. I do have another guest.
I am here, Reverend Harriett. I'm having problems with my Zoom.
Okay. Well, hey, I'm sorry about that.
Phone.
All right.
So I apologize for the delay.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Well, welcome. You haven't been on probably in maybe about 4 weeks. And so if you could just go ahead and give us an update. I was on your show last Thursday, and you had a guest from Georgia, representative there from Georgia, and he was a kind man, because one of the things he said, he had to get off to go take care of his mother. It's hearing an adult say that on the airwaves is an unusual happening in America.
Well, Congressman Hank Johnson is that kind of guy. His mother's 96, and it's good to hear that our folks have responsibilities that they undertake, right, and gladly undertake them, like you heard him say on last Thursday. But Reverend Harriett, a lot of things are going on. A lot of people are talking about reparations, and now, folks are trying to say, well, what about people who got here in 1904? And I said, well, as far as I'm concerned, we got to go with African descendants of United States enslaved, with the people that spent 254 years in slavery, our lineage in slavery, and like my daughter said, built this joint for free, died in every war. And I'm saying is that if other descendants who ended up in Central America or South America or the Caribbean, then the folks who colonized them need to be responsible for their reparations.
I agree.
France, Germany, France, right, England, Spain, and Holland. The Netherlands. So right, those are the folks who were doing. They were the ones that's going around, taking advantage and colonizing people and taking their land and everything else. But when it comes down to African descendants of the United States enslaved in North America, which is now the United States. We can't let them forget, although Ron DeSantis and some other right-wingers want you to forget that we spent 254 years in slavery. And I can't say that somebody got here in 1914 is going to have the same kind of resume. Because Lincoln
had already signed the paper when they got here.
Oh, exactly. And some of them fell by the Statue of Liberty, which France gave to the United States in 1854, probably for making Haiti pay reparations for 50 years. But, that's
Haiti's still paying.
And that's why Haiti doesn't have an infrastructure.
That's right. That's why it doesn't have an infrastructure. That's right.
In the Western Hemisphere, the only black country that fought for its freedom and gained it and then punished for it ever since then.
Punished for it. And that really is true.
Our government can look all over the world to help people, but we can't go right
all over the world. My grandfather told me that when I was little. He taught me my timetables. He used to call them timetables in those days, multiple timetables. But he taught me that when I was 7 or 8 years old. And one of the things he said Americans always went on and helped everybody else, but they would never help the Negro, and that's what he told me when I was a little girl, and it continues to play out in the psyche.
True then and true now.
We're just not worthy enough for help. I mean, it's something about that scenario that has not changed, and we're the people who pulled ourselves up with no boots and no scraps. I mean, really and truly, when people might want to talk about things, it's like, okay, when they left, when freedom, so-called freedom came, they said, go, they called them by all kinds of names, go, get off my property. Now, some people did do all right because some people are family. I mean, the plantation owner gave land to some people, but those are maybe his descendants from the lady in bondage that had children. In bondage. Those are children born in bondage.
My great-grandfathers on my mother's side, her mother's mother was a white man, and my father's father was a white man.
The same way with my grandmother that I talked about, her father was also fathered by the plantation owner, and he kind of looked like he could pass in those days too. I mean, if he wanted to pass, looked like he could, but he chose blackness and stayed on the black side.
Well, when I saw my father's father for the first time, I thought he was white.
Well, yeah, and I got it on both sides because my grandmother said that. Yeah, I got it on both sides of my lineage. Yeah,
But, so getting back to the whole reparations thing, and I've been telling people it's easy to sit up and talk about it now, but if we're serious, there has to be a federal designation for African descendants of the United States enslaved.
That's right.
With a department in every federal agency. There's a small business administration, and there needs to be a black business administration. We need to have a large bank so that with branches for us and ran by us. And we also have to have reparations. It also has to include land. Black people ran off land every time there was any atrocity or any black person accused of doing something, like a gentleman down in Osceola, Florida, that went to vote in 1920, and they burned up the whole black neighborhood, the businesses, and ran them off the land. So land got to be included.
Also Rosewood, they did the same thing in Rosewood, Florida. But state by state in the South, you got people who ran off the land. I mean, really and truly, millions of acres was taken, and then you got all the black farmers who got their land confiscated. So it's such a debt that America owes to the stolen ones, because we were absolutely stolen. Nobody got on that ship nobody got on that ship and changed saying we shall overcome. Okay.
You're right about that. But see, the other thing we got to look at too is that right now we have a situation. They just had the NCAA tournament. Almost all African American young guys playing basketball, and hardly a black face in the student section. So the NCAA has to take some responsibility for making sure, because they fight in affirmative action, except for if you can play basketball or football and make millions of dollars for these white institutions, they have to have a commitment to make sure that our kids are getting in colleges without playing football or basketball. And once we get there with the NCAA, we got to go to the NFL and the NBA. Most of the players are African descent, and right now, before Nesby Glasgow died, we had a deal asking for each NFL, each NBA team to have 10% of their contracts African Americans, deposit 10% of their annual revenue in a black bank. We also asked for a third of the pension fund from the NBA and the NFL to be deposited in a super black bank that would have branches throughout the country. And so if we don't have a bank, I mean, right now, it's ridiculous to sit up here and talk about competing against other minorities when other minorities have countries and have access to offshore money. We don't have that.
That's true.
And we're the ones that created these programs. When the contractors program came about, it was primarily black folks. Now, Jim Takasaki was out there, Raven Akers was out there, part of the Central Contractors Association, with the late Willie Allen and Tyree Scott had the UCWA. And when we closed jobs down, the students from the Chicano division, led by Sam Martinez, came down to support black folks getting in those building trade unions. We have the same problem right now. I want to tell the president, Mr. President, I know you encourage for the unions to support folks, but we're tired of seeing a nooses hung up on the work sites of black folks right now. When 60% of the African American males don't make it past the third year in the building trades.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
Something got to be dealt with.
No, and especially in the Pacific Northwest. Now, down south and some other places, it might be different. I mean, but they're up here, and that's really true. That is really true what happens here. And they kept them out of the unions. Even look how long it took Tyree Scott and them to actually be recognized and to do all this other work. But you were talking about the designation. Are you going to go back to the Black Caucus? I mean, because they had the power to try to absolutely get behind that idea, and I don't know if you got an interaction.
I've been passing that on to at least 15 members of the Congressional Black Caucus. Also, my ideas about you have a small business administration. We need to have a black business administration. You have a minority business program. We need to have a set-aside program for businesses owned by African descent United States enslaved. And the money and the contracts come directly to us, that we have engineers who can carve out scopes of work, both in the technical field and on the construction side. Because like trucking, for example, there's no reason for it to be on a general contractor. And then if we don't have blacks coming out of the building trades as journey people, then that means that's where our contractors come from. So they've done a good job of really annihilating African United States trade from any kind of economic opportunity.
Right. Well, I think it's unwritten.
6% of the population in Seattle.
Well, I think it's an unwritten rule somewhere that all people that they go by is to make sure that the Native Americans, I mean, of course, the Native Americans got some prosperity in some places, but a lot of places they don't. Make sure that we never rise to the level of anybody else who comes to this country. It's like it's like they have a playbook by it. I mean, because look, when the great financial crisis came, black people lost their property. I mean, they lost a lot of wealth during that time, a lot of wealth.
If you don't have access to capital, you can't grow a business.
That's right.
You can't start a business.
That's right. If you don't have access to capital, capital is so important.
That's why I've been talking to people in the Department of Financial Institutions in Washington State. What do we have to do to get a bank? What do we have to do? And we know there's a whole bunch of banks in the city that belong to other folks from other countries, but they're not none for us.
Well, yeah, and like you say, they get offshore money. I mean, and a lot of other things that can happen with that kind of, with that. Of course, we had a bank at one time. I mean, we did have a bank. The first one, I think, west of the Mississippi, a black bank that we had here, the Liberty Bank, Liberty Bank. But that lasted for a while, but it is no longer here. Because
they had some problems when Tom Wood tried to open up a branch downtown on 2nd Avenue and Union.
Right, that's right, and so they took him out for that.
About it.
Right, that's right. That's right. As long as you understand.
On 23rd, that might have been good if he stayed on 24th. Maybe we still have part of the CD left, but it's all just been economic apartheid. If you don't have access to capital,
it really is.
If you don't have access to contracts, in the state's last numbers, African descendants of the United States enslaved did 0.18% of the state's
1%. I mean, and that's
0.18.
No economic, but really.
Yeah. So
we spent three terms with Christine Gregoire. You remember that? And then I think we're gonna have 3 terms here with Jay Inslee. I guess they passed some things about housing. To have some kind of housing grants for people. who people had been hurt or their lineage, their ancestors were hurt about redlining and those kinds of things. But also, I believe that gentrification is another way of people removal. I mean, because what it does, it removes from people. It's people removal. See, and so that's what I call it. I call it people removal.
When we released the first report on redlining through the Central Seattle Community Council Federation, Rosalind Woodhouse, Dr. Rosalind Woodhouse, as director of camp, allowed me to represent the agency on various commissions and boards. And we released a report December 1973 that the ethnic cleansing of the black folks under CD was about to take place.
Well, and it did.
It did. Is they were going to run R.H. Thompson, which that off-ramp at the Arboretum, off-ramp to nowhere was supposed to go between 26th and 28th all the way to I-90. And that was going to destroy the rest of the black community. But, the trees in the Arboretum saved us. The people said, you can't destroy the trees in the Arboretum.
Wow. Well, that's a good thing. Mr. Wright, I really appreciate you coming on. But the next time I want, let's talk a little bit about, you call him Uncle, Uncle Thomas.
Uncle Tom S. That's Dr. Art Fletcher called him that. Dr. Art Fletcher, the father of permanent vaccine, said, the biggest political mistake I ever made in my life was allowing President George H.W. Bush to have me endorse Clarence Thomas. And after about 6 months, Dr. Fletcher said, Clarence Tom S. And he said, the stuff he said, he should not only be disbarred, he needs to be in jail.
Well, Hastings was the last time, before Hastings they took his federal judgeship from him. They had not taken anything from a federal judge in almost a century, and it was Hastings out of Florida. So who knows what can happen with Clarence Thomas? I mean, I know he's not been a benefit for us.
Hastings left the bench and went to Congress, didn't he?
Yeah. Yes, he did. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's just like our two Justins down there in Nashville. They kicked him out and then they got right back in there. So.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I really appreciate what you're doing, and we just have to keep at it because I'll have people on next month to be talking about Florida. I have to bring people on often about Florida because Florida is the bellwether state going in reverse. I mean, and they're out there not only trying to run Disney out, but also coming after Black people. So it's going to be interesting. And so I don't think we can sit out Florida. We have to be engaged in Florida.
I think you're right on that one, Reverend Harriett. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So
matter of fact, Charlie James had posted a picture of Ron DeSantis and a picture of Mickey Mouse, and Mickey Mouse was telling DeSantis, "I'll be here a lot longer than you," and I reposted that on my Facebook page.
Well, look like Disney is trying to get out of Florida, so I don't know. I mean, I saw something. Yeah, well,
he might run them out.
Well, but do you know that Disney
is Orlando, and the mayor is Black, who was also married to the congresswoman from down there.
Well, yeah, but Disney is the largest employer of Florida.
Ran for senator.
Yeah, but you're talking about Val.
Val Deming.
Yeah. Well, Disney is the largest.
Mayor of Orlando.
That's right, but Disney is the largest employer in Florida. I mean, Florida is a tourist state. So anyway, but listen, I think that my next guest is coming in. I really appreciate you coming on, Mr. Wright, and we'll take a break. And you listen to the Mother's Justice Show, and we'll be right back.
The Mother's Justice Show is brought to you by H.G. Walden and the Virtues Healing Circles. Join us for Wisdom and Wellness with Reverend Walden, a monthly virtual and in-person healing circle that focuses on community healing and growth. Learn more at virtueshealing.com. That's virtueshealing.com. Also, be sure to join our healing group on Facebook. Again, visit us at virtueshealing.com today.
Good afternoon. You're listening to the Mother's Justice Show on 1150 AM KKNW. I'm your host, Reverend Walden. It's my joy to be on the air. Before I bring my next guest in, I want to remind you that Mothers is having a community meeting on Wednesday. This Wednesday at the Liberty Bank building, the apartment building on this 1405 24th. And that's on the corner of 24th and Union. The time is from 6 to 7:30. Come and help us. We're getting our engine going again. We spent a lot of time on the commission, and so we're just trying to get our engine going again. Thank you for that. If you need my number, it's 206-380-1710. Thank you. Bring my next guest on. I'm really excited about Dr. Cali Ellis. She's the interim director at the Community Police Commission. Have not had that high level person on in a long, long time. So welcome. I'm just so excited to have you on my show. I mean, you just have so much going. I mean, I'm so glad that you applied to be a policy director, and and then things evolved, and so you're interim director. But you have such an interesting background in policy, and to meet somebody who loves policy, that's like meeting somebody who's an accountant who loves it.
I do love policy.
Yes. So what got you going and loving policy?
Oh, wow. So I went to Michigan, University of Michigan, at my master's degree in public policy, and I could have gone in many different directions, but I got really lucky when I was there. And I started working for, when I graduated, the person who was the Attorney General of Michigan, who went on to become the first female governor of Michigan, and who is now the Secretary of Energy for the United States. Her name is Jennifer Granholm. And that really got my love of policy going when I was at a formative stage. This was back long ago. And so I always love working on policy. I love the different complications of policy. I love the world of policy and the politics. All of that is really fun. So after I worked in policy in Michigan for a while, I went back to get my PhD, also at the University of Michigan. And when I was there, I studied different types of policy, but eventually I wanted to become a professor. So I became a professor at Evergreen. I was a professor there in the MPA program for the last 5 years. But living in Seattle the entire time, I always wanted to give back to my community where I've been living the whole time. So that's why I decided to apply for the policy director position at the CPC.
Wow. Well, I tell you, I'm glad to hear that all of that turn of events, because you have what you bring to the city. I mean, what your breadth of experience, your enthusiasm, and then you're out connecting with people, and you also do a lot on your volunteer time. You have a program that you volunteer once a month there, and you were actually 3 weeks ago. I mean, when Elijah Lewis was you were not too far from that. So would you tell us, our listeners, about what you do in your spare time, which is not your spare time, it's your volunteer work time? What do you do there?
Sure. I'm a volunteer with the Victim Support Team. And what that is a formal program. It works with the Seattle Police Department, but we are all volunteers. We're all civilians, and we're very well trained to primarily support victims of domestic violence. After their perpetrator has been taken away, oftentimes the police don't have any time there to support them or provide any sort of follow-up services. And so that's when the Victim Support Team, the VST, will come in and help and provide support to victims in that way. However, at the time of that tragic event, I was also there, and we were there to provide support for, it wasn't a domestic violence, but it was another type of violent situation, and we were there to support the family members in getting them over to the hospital when the police were not available to do so. So yeah, that's my volunteer work, is supporting victims of violence in different ways.
Wow, that's wonderful. I mean, because a lot of times people just don't know what to do. I mean, they can't get there fast enough, or and all of those things. And then what you're doing is just really, really important to be able to do that. But today I invited you on to talk. I know your love of policy, and that you were instrumental down in Olympia. For us, you were on the legislative work group, I believe, and then you represented the CPC on the Coalition for Police Accountability. You were on those calls, and so you just hit the floor, hit the ground running around policy. So would you just come on and just give us an update about that, and then what you see the future work is?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So this was a very interesting year for the legislature, and especially for police reform. This was a budget year. So what this means is this was a longer session, over 100 days, and most of the focus of this session is on getting the biennial budget passed. And at the beginning of the legislative session, the governor, legislators realized that one of the biggest things they had to do actually had to do with not policing, but actually housing. There's a lot of bills related to housing that you'll see passed. There was a lot of money going to housing because that's the primary crisis that's facing the entire state. However, there were some very important police reform bills that advocates were trying to move forward. And that was what the Community Police Commission was following along with our commissioners. So I'll mention a few. I want to say up front that none of them actually made it through all the different steps to become law. So it was kind of a disappointing year in terms of police reform bills. But a couple of them that we were working on and that we actually want to continue working on at the CPC was Representative Chapalo Street. He's a brand new rep. He's actually my rep in Seattle. And he had House Bill 1513. It was called traffic safety. And so the intent of this bill was to reduce unnecessary interactions between the community and police by removing the ability of police to pull people over for non-moving violations. So this is things like broken tail lights or other things that are not directly related to danger on the roads. And this is, as you know, often a place where people can have unnecessarily dangerous encounters with the police. So this bill did not make it through. It didn't leave the House of Origin. However, good news on this bill is that the bill also included money to provide grants to people to prevent this from happening in the first place. So these are like find it, fix it tickets. These are things like grants to help people actually get their taillights fixed, to deal with prior tickets, all of that. That money showed up in a different place. It didn't show up with the bill, but it showed up in the transportation operating budget. So the transportation budget, there's $750,000 there. This was all went through and was signed. So there's still going to be grant funding going forward to support people, but this bill itself did not make it through that process. And I will say the reason why I highlighted this one is because the commissioners were very interested. We actually one of the commissioners wrote an amendment to this bill, and I sent it to the bill sponsor. It didn't make it, but it's something that the CPC plans to remain actively involved with going forward. There were a couple of other important police bills that, again, did not make it through this session, but they're important to watch for the future. So there were bills in the Attorney General's office to basically give that office more strength and power for investigating bad police officers or stepping in when a county prosecutor doesn't want to prosecute police officers for misbehavior. Those were House Bill 1445, which was sponsored by Representative Drew Hansen, and then House Bill 1579, which would create an independent prosecutor for police use of deadly force. Again, neither one of those went forward. However, there was a lot of discussion. It got the discussion going and in a very important way. So one of the things I want to emphasize about the legislative process is that there's a lot of attention when the legislators are there in Olympia. Everything's on TVW, which is an amazing resource for people to stay engaged with the process. However, a lot of the most important work happens after session, starting about now. In June, in July, and August is when a lot of the advocates, including the CPC, will come together with legislators who are still out there, even if they're not down in Olympia, and they'll have more time to really engage with the public and community about their interest in these bills. So it's really important, if you're interested in staying involved with the legislative process, to keep that in mind. Even though all the attention happens when they're there in Olympia, a lot of the most important work happens between sessions.
Well, I can agree to that. I mean, because things got rolled back in 2021 because the pressure wasn't there as it was in 20. It wasn't there. I mean, things got rolled back this year because the pressure wasn't there like it was in 2021. I mean, everything was on Zoom. People had more chance to participate.
Right.
I mean, and I think Zoom made things more democratized in ways, because if you live in Spokane or down in Vancouver, Washington, or even up in Bellingham, it's hard to make those trips. And I hope that they would keep that going to give people a chance. But one of the things too, I think that I think you had some real freshmen there in 2020, and they got a lot of things done.
Yeah.
But in the 4 years, some of those freshmen decided not to run again, because one thing about this system is that you have to be engaged the whole time, and then you have to be in it for the long haul. And some people are not there for the long haul. See, and so that's what happens. And so I saw the rollback coming, because I know just from doing this work that we've been doing for a long time, is that the other side is highly organized.
Yep.
I mean, because they get paid to be there, number one. I mean, they'll get paid to be there. Other people have to take off their jobs and stuff like that, don't get paid. So anytime they show up in uniform, they're getting paid. Unless they're even at the chief level, then, they'll still be on the clock. But they're highly organized. They have a good turnout. I mean, they are determined that things will not change. I mean, they have a great vested interest in making sure that they don't give another fuck. I mean, really and truly. And go ahead.
That's a great point. And we saw that, as you mentioned, with the vehicular pursuit rollback. So there were very important changes made to the law in 2020 that basically limited the ability of officers to do vehicular pursuit. And they targeted that as their number one thing, not just law enforcement, but also a lot of mayors in different cities, not Seattle, but a lot of our surrounding communities targeted this as the one thing that they wanted to focus on. And when they put all that focus on that one bill, and it wasn't even just one bill, it was a couple of bills. The one that ended up passing was sponsored by Senator Lovick in the Senate, but it was very much an intended coordinated effort to make sure that those rollbacks happened. And it's interesting to watch. It absolutely illustrates the dynamics you're talking about, Reverend Walden.
Well, yeah, and I know Leslie Cushman, who's involved with the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability. I mean, the number of people who've been injured or harmed went down. This in the last 2 years, it went down. And I guess that the other side, we just didn't have what it takes enough, because I don't. But also crime escalated, and I think all of that. I think in people's mind, all this crime go together. I mean, because we've seen a spike in crime, not only here, but across the nation, with people just going out, just picking up guns and doing a lot of harm. But I think it's kind of like all meshed together. And even this time, I mean, in 2020 and 2021, the victims, the voices of the families mattered. And this time, I don't think those voices mattered as much as they did, because George Floyd was still present in people's mind, and now it is fleeted away. Although you have Memphis and you have Akron, Ohio, about police pursuits and that type of thing, what happened to individuals, but it's not in the minds of the people, and I think the law enforcement people feel like, well, this will pass, and we'll get what we want. I mean, and that's what I think they wait back to see, and then they come out with their people, and you have a lot of people on the other side. I mean, you have family members who was just bystanders who had gotten killed because of a police pursuit, and so you naturally, those people they're going to come out and support whatever on each side. I mean, on each side you had victims of people out there who had wanted to support the one bill or another. But I think what I get from your excitement that I'm really interested in is that you understand the two-party system, and you understand that it's a participatory system, and that everybody has one senator and two representatives in America. Everybody does, whether they know it or not. That's what the system is. And that's what the beauty of it is, if people knew how to use it. You got to know how to use it, and it's not always user-friendly. But in Washington State now, some people want to get rid of the open meetings things and water that down. But with the open meetings, you have a right. You have a chance to participate.
Yes.
And that distinguishes you from a country like Russia, and some other countries. I mean, where people look like they want to go to. You got a lot of Americans who look like they want to have a theocratic society. Somebody to tell them when they go to bed, get up, and where they can work at and where they can't. I mean, it seems like that's really what they want. But talk a little bit about this, because it has to be something in that inspires you. Because if you were teaching this, and it has to be something in that in this whole scenario about the two-party system that surprises you. I mean, that really does give you passion
Absolutely. Yeah. So when I was a professor at Evergreen, I actually taught legislative policy for 5 years. And these were master's students, and some of my students knew something about the process here in Washington and some didn't, but they were advocates. But one of the things that I really like about the system here in Washington is that because these are part-time legislators, they are accessible to you. These aren't professional people. These are people that have jobs, that are part of their communities. And also, it's very important to remember that they work for you. Right. They are not special in any way other than they do this specific work as part of the community. So you should always feel like you can reach out, and you should reach out to your representatives or your senator and tell them your own specific concerns, because they will be responsive to you and they do care. There's a whole range of them, on both sides. I think that there's a little bit less polarization here in Washington State than there is in other places, which is really helpful. But I think it's really important not to feel that this process is something that you can't learn or you can't participate in, because if anyone tries to tell you that, it's very disempowering, right? You should write op-eds. You should write to your legislators. You should write to your congresspeople. You should go to town halls. You should take them up on their request to talk to you, because they actually really do want to hear from you and they need to hear from you. Right. So that's one of the things that I always emphasize with my students. It's important to learn the process because it matters. It's transparent. You can see what's going on and you can participate.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I thought you had some passion on that. Let's take a break and come right back and let's continue our conversation. You're listening to the Mother's Justice Show at 11:50 a.m. KKNW. I'm your host from Walden. We'll be right back.
The Mother's Justice Show is brought to you by H.G. Walden and the Virtues Healing Circles. Join us for Wisdom and Wellness with Reverend Walden, a monthly virtual and in-person healing circle that focuses on community healing and growth. Learn more at virtueshealing.com. That's virtueshealing.com. Also, be sure to join our healing group on Facebook. Again, visit us at virtueshealing.com today.
Good afternoon. You're listening to the Mother's Justice Show at 11:50 a.m. KKNW. I'm your host from Walden. I want to thank you for listening, and I want to bring my guest back on, Dr. Cali Ellis. She's the interim director of the Community Police Commission. Also has been a professor down at Evergreen, and I'll tell you a little Evergreen story in a few minutes. But welcome back. So thank you. Thank you for saying yes. Yeah. So but one of the things I knew, because see, the Canadian system is different from ours, right? Yeah.
Yes, it is. Their system is more closely modeled after the British system because they were closely connected to England for much longer than we were. So yeah, they have a House of Lords. I don't know if it's exactly called that, but it's a House of Lords. So these are basically wealthier people that are appointed, as well as something that's more like a House of Commons. We have in the United States both senators and representatives. So we have representatives that are representative of populations, and then senators that are 2 for each state. And this is why the census was so important, what just wrapped up, because every time they go out and do this counting, that's what sets every 10 years what the representative population is going to look like when you send people to Washington, D.C., as well as to the State House here in Washington.
Right. And then they redraw districts and stuff like that also. Right. Based on that time, they redraw districts, because where I'm at right now, one time it was the 47th, and then they 47th to 43rd, and then it changed to the 37th. So it's changed more than once since I've been in Seattle. Cute little Evergreen story. I loved Evergreen. I always thought it was a swell place. I mean, to go down there and get a liberal arts degree. I mean, it's the campus was cool, and then Dr. Maxine Mims set up the Tacoma campus. He's the founder of the Tacoma campus, and so my son Chikundi, I wanted him to go to Evergreen so bad, and I took him down there. And at that time, he said, "Well, if I was 43 and you was 16, I'd let you go there." I just thought it would be such a neat experience, but he wound up going down south to HBCU, to school his father went to, Elizabeth City State down there in North Carolina, Elizabeth City, North Carolina. But it was just something about the campus. It was something about, and I told Dan Evans was, he's probably the only Republican I ever voted for was Dan Evans, because he was a decent man. He was a Republican when before they changed party and then became the Dixiecrats. But so it was just, he was always just just a fine governor. I always thought, and so it was just something about the campus that I really loved. And I've been on that campus many times. I mean, I've been down there for many events early on. I haven't been down there recently, but I always loved that campus. And I always think about that campus because Chikunda says, "Well, you know, if I was your age and you were my age, I'd let you go there."
I love teaching at Evergreen. I was able to teach at both the main campus down in Olympia, but I also taught a couple classes up at the Tacoma campus because we have an MPA, or they had an MPA program at the Tacoma campus as well. And I really value, one of the things I do miss about being a professor is that I really value all the connections I made with my students. So some of my students are here in Seattle. Okay. They went all the way down there when we're still doing in-person teaching, and we're able to bring the lessons from the MPA program back here to Seattle. A lot of people are down in Olympia. At the MPA level, it's mostly adult learners. So a lot of my students have children and homes, and they're working for the state or nonprofits. But my students are out there in the world, and I hope that they learn the lessons that I taught them well. They were wonderful when I was there.
Well, you know, I just think you would be a fine professor. I mean, I would probably like to audit your class if I had to. I'm not looking for credit. But I know you have something interesting, something else in your background is that you went to the police academy. You went through that, did you not? Yeah, and I see you perk up when you know that, and I didn't know that before, but I'm really, so you want to talk a little bit about the police academy?
Sure. So I moved to Seattle in about 2017, again, when I was working down at Evergreen. So I lived up here and would commute down to Evergreen for my job, but I wanted to get to know more about the city that I was living in, what was going on around me. And so I signed up for the Community Police Academy. I'd gone to one before that was in East Lansing, Michigan, which is a very different type of community. That's a smaller college town because I'd worked in Michigan at the Capitol nearby there. And so I thought it would be very different to learn about what is Seattle through this lens. And it was an amazing experience, very, very thorough. I learned about all different aspects of policing, many different things they do, some of which are really visible and some of which are not so visible, kind of happening behind the scenes. And it was there that I learned about the victim support team. Actually, that they made a presentation, and I thought at first, I don't know if I can do this, but I really wanted to, as I said, give back to my community, and I decided to go for it and went through the Victim Support Team Academy, and then I've been a Victim Support Team volunteer for about 2 years.
Well, I've heard good things about that program. I mean, I know that, when Felicia got hired there, it was somebody else running that program, and she eventually started running it and had more people to go through that academy than ever before. So I never did, but I know she's from Seattle, so she was able to recruit some Black people to go through that who would who would probably never go to the police academy had not been for her, because they just knew her and they trusted her. So that type of thing. So anyway, I just said we got just a few more minutes here. We got about 6 more minutes. Anyway, I'm just still interested in policy. I'm still interested. So what are we going to be working on in the summer? I mean, do we have anything that we're going to be working on in the summer and with some of our partners and actually trying to educate the commissioners that it's a whole year event. It's just not over. And I tell people all the time, I said the other side was winning because the people who would think they got something, they go home and eat the popcorn and think they won. I say, but this is the system. I say, you know what? Cali likes the red mushrooms and I like the green ones. Now and I got my little people, and we get all the business. We get all the business from the city, all the business for the mushrooms I like. But you've been lobbying, and every year you come back and you lobby, and we just show up and we still win. Well, one of these years somebody didn't show up, and guess what? You got the contract, and that's what happens. See, you got to show up because and sometimes they listen to the loudest voices like they did in 2020, which was really a mistake. I mean, because then it looked like the central staff might have done some investigation and say, hey, let's call some other voices in, but nobody did. See, so that's how that's how I try to explain it to people. It's elementary, it's like this is how it works. You could not say you won today and go home and sit down and eat popcorn. That's because the other side, right. Look at Roe v. Wade, 40 years established law, and what happened? I think they did that one first because they come in after. Well, they want to roll back Brown versus the Board of Education. So they've already set the precedent to do that. So by overturning Roe v. Wade, I mean, I think that's where they headed at. But I like to give them elementary. This is how it works. You go home. Oh, we won. Oh, let's pass the popcorn. Okay. Oh yeah, I'm not going out anymore. Okay. The other side is organized.
Mm-hmm. That's a really important point. This is a continuous process. I'll tell you, because legislature ended on Sunday, everyone that's involved in that is taking a break. It's pretty exhausting. It's a marathon they all got through. So give it about
a couple. Budget? Did they get a budget? Did they get a budget that they could agree on?
They did. Oh. They did. They're not going into special session. They ended on time, which everyone's really proud about, because in a few prior years, they used to go into special session and then everyone would have to come back to Olympia, but that didn't happen. They got everything done this year that they wanted to, but there's still a lot more work that needs to be done, again, in this time between session. You're absolutely right, Reverend Walden. You can't just say that we won, it's over, because there's always people on the other side. That's the whole point of the two-party system. There's people that disagree with you. And sometimes there's more of them and sometimes there's less of them, but they're always going to be there. And so it's really important to stay engaged with your legislators and with the process and with the community, and really stay in touch with what's going on. Again, I think starting about in June is when we'll revisit some of the bills that quote unquote failed. The reason why I say that is because this is the beginning of biennium. This is a 2-year process. So the bills that did not pass, they're still out there. And as soon as we get to December 2023, they'll be ready to go. And the question is whether or not there's enough support to keep that momentum going that was here during parts of session to actually get them back onto the floor through the different committees and to the desk of the governor. It takes a lot of work.
It does take a lot of work. And I tell people also now, the people who are running things, that they took a page out of Black people organizing. We organized in this country not only while we were slaves, but our ancestors was in bondage. But for 100 and something years, we did. And now, after affirmative action, people went home and ate popcorn. And so the others, the evangelicals, or whatever that group is called, they took a page out of our book. They have not gone home in 40 years. We had never gone home. And so therefore, he who organizes the best and organizes often is going to win. And so that's what they're doing. And they're moving into Washington State. I mean, they're trying to take over school boards, because the whole idea now is to make sure that education, I mean, they want a theocrat. And I said, I'm going to tweet out the GOP is the new Communist Party. I mean, because they really want a theocratic system. They don't want any system that absolutely highlights any other people's achievements but theirs. Okay, I mean, and they want to isolate and protect their children, or the children unborn, from getting information. And but we would always organize, and affirmative action and good jobs did something to that organizing, because all over the country, there are people come out doing police issues, but they're not there around the other issues, and that's where you got to be there at, because you're going to get a little bit of concession, like we did after the untimely death of George Floyd, and they come back. Because this system also is redundant. You probably found that out doing policy. There's always another law behind that law.
Right.
So I mean, so it's a redundancy in the system that keeps this system. We call it white supremacy. We keep the system going is because of the redundancy in the law. Yeah.
That's what's so interesting to me about policy, is that all of these things are interconnected. You can't just look at policing without looking at nutrition. You can't just look at policing without looking at K-12 education or prison reform or the environment. All of these things are part of the same system. And so at the CPC, we focus on policing. We have the mandate in our governing ordinance to do that. But I know, and most of the people that are advocates on this work know, that all of these things are connected. And it's important to remember that connection when we're doing this work.
That's right. And I agree, but it is all connected. It really is. And so, wow, this has been wonderful. I mean, I really support what you're doing. And I really like your passion for policy. It just excites me. Somebody that's passionate about policy, it's like, wow, that means you love what you do. And when you love what you do, you bring your best. You bring your A game. I mean, I had a job once that I love it. I mean, I love being on the air. I mean, I love being on there. This 1 hour, I mean, it gives me joy. And sometimes when you're doing other kinds of work, you need to find a place that gives you joy. You got to have some joy. You got to have some joy in your life. You really do it. Else you're not going to get there. So, and you bring joy and that to your to your work. So I really appreciate you being my guest. And I appreciate you, coming on, and I'll have you on again. And I just want to announce before I leave again, our mother's meeting is Wednesday. From 6 to 7:30 at the Liberty Bank apartment buildings in the community room. If you need more information, call me at 206-380-1710. Look forward to seeing you. And thank you so much, Dr. Ellis, for being my guest. And I'll be talking with you. Thank you so much. You've been listening.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You've been listening to the Mother's Justice Show. I'll see you next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
The Mother's Justice Show is brought to you by H.G. Walden and the Virtues Healing Circles. Join us for Wisdom and Wellness with Reverend Walden, a monthly virtual and in-person healing circle that focuses on community healing and growth. Learn more at virtueshealing.com. That's virtueshealing.com. Also, be sure to join our healing group on Facebook. Again, visit us at virtueshealing.com today.
I earned my degree online at Arizona State University. I chose to get my degree at ASU because I knew that I'd get a quality education, they were recognized for excellence, and that I would be prepared for the workforce upon graduating. To be associated with ASU, both as a student and alum, it makes me extremely proud, and having experienced the program, I know now that I'm set up for success. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.